Okay, it's a little bit afternoon, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks to those of you who are here. I'm Gloria Fletcher with NAI Puget Sound Properties, and I'm so happy that we're doing this. We're going to start out by thanking our 2021 sponsors. Your support as a sponsor is invaluable to our mission. We could not do this without you. So our gold sponsors are Bentel Green Oak, B&B Builders, Goodman Real Estate, Kennedy Wilson, Mortensen, Olds Morrison, Sellon, Stokes Lawrence, Vulcan, and our silver sponsors are Colliers, DCI Engineers, DPK Construction, Foster Garvey, Hillis Clark Martin and Peterson, Hermanson, PBS, Ryan Swanson, Parker Smith and Feek, Schukark, ZGF, Swinnerton, and of course our in-kind sponsors, Middle of Six Marketing Consultants, The Registry, Washington Holdings, and Zira Photo. I want to take just a couple minutes to share this list of our great upcoming virtual events. For more information or to register, please go to our website. And don't forget that Crew is on a lot of social media. We have Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So again, thank you for being here, and please join us in welcoming our panel, Rachael Pease, Miriam Barnett, and John Korsmo. I'm going to start by introducing Rachael. She is the full-time diversity program manager at Korsmo Construction. She's responsible for developing and implementing Korsmo's diversity program, leading the construction industry in meeting diversity and inclusion goals. And Korsmo Construction is receiving national and state recognition for these efforts. All right, Rachael.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we have two great special guests. I'm really excited to be a part of this event, to just be in this room with these two great people. So thank you for joining us. Everybody deserves a safe home. And that is the vision behind the YWCA's largest capital project to date, Home at Last. In 2017, the YWCA launched the ambitious $23 million campaign. The campaign to build affordable housing in downtown Tacoma. The now established Dorothy Heights apartment consists of 54 beautiful apartments for homeless families and survivors of domestic violence. It also includes a 4,000 square foot programming space that allows them to expand their counseling programs in the future. The long-awaited 54-unit affordable housing project recently opened on Broadway in downtown Tacoma, and families are moving in today. The project specifically provides services to homeless and low-income families. I'm truly, truly honored to have this opportunity to introduce our two next guests. They are champions for social justice, relentless in eliminating racism, and are selfless in their journey for changing the world around them. My first guest, CEO of YWCA, she likes to refer as Chief Executive of Opportunity. I love that. Miriam is passionate about making the world a better place for all people. Her work at the YWCA is a perfect fit to achieve her personal mission of making a difference one step and one person at a time. She has been involved in nonprofit world since 1987 and has accepted her position as CEO at the YWCA on July 5th, 2005. A few of her accolades, and I say a few because there's many, she has received over the years are nothing but amazing. She was named Woman of Influence by Business Examiner. Weyerhaeuser Companies awarded her the Martin Luther King Living the Dream Award, receiving the Redeeming the Prophetic Vision Social Justice Award, Inspiration Award given to her from the city of Tacoma, and she was named Citizen of the Year by South Sound Magazine. Miriam sits on countless boards, and she somehow squeezes in time for her love of baking. Her cookies are incredible. Every year at the yearly fundraising event, GLAM, this item is on the top of my list to bid on. Met Market has nothing on her cookies. My second guest is John Korsmo Jr., owner of Korsmo Construction, my boss, and general contractor for the Dorothy Heights apartments. As a second generation owner of Korsmo Construction, John has been leading the firm since 1986. John is still engaged in every aspect of the organization and provides overall guidance and leadership to the entire team. John is passionate and he's committing to building strong communities. He is heavily involved in the South Sound region, serving various nonprofits, boards, committees. He instills this passion into his Korsmo company culture. Korsmo's employees are dedicated to supporting local causes through outreach and volunteer efforts that foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and access into the communities. This proud PLU graduate is a humanitarian at heart, putting people, community, and relationships at the forefront of all he does. So before I turn it over to Miriam and to John, I'd like to say that during our program at any time, if you'd like to check the Q&A box, and if you have any questions for our guest, we will have our panelists review them and answer your questions at the end of our program. So I will hand it over to the beautiful Miriam Barnett.
Thank you so much, Rachel. This is just a thrill to be here and an honor. I'm very, very grateful. So I'm going to start just by giving a really brief background of the YWCA for those of you who aren't familiar with our work. So our mission is to transform lives through safety, healing, and empowerment. And we focus on comprehensive programs for domestic violence victims and their families. And our vision is that we are the leader in innovative services to break the cycle of intimate partner violence. Now, one thing I want to add that's not on this slide is we created a value statement with our team for our Home at Last project, which is Korsmo Construction, Beacon Development, and SMR Architects. And I want to read you that value statement because it was very important. And it's right in front of me. I'm sitting at my desk and it's right in front of me. So I remembered it every day that we were doing this project. And our value statement is together, we are creating Home at Last, built on safety, respect, honesty, and care for each other and those finding refuge here. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just quickly share my objectives for this presentation and let you know they all do intersect. And you'll understand them, I hope, more when the presentation is over. But it's kind of my lifelong mission now to adopt an attitude that sometimes good enough isn't. So this means that, you know, often with low income or homeless people, we think anything will be good enough. It will work. But I want to rethink that and how we can actually provide space, create space for those that have the least by providing the most. This project is a perfect example of that. And also share how beauty makes a difference in how people heal, which is something we've learned is very, very important here at the YWCA. So in 1927, this group of women, we started in 1906, but they realized we had outgrown our space and they raised $300,000 to build the building I'm sitting in right now. So it's a 5-story brick building. Here they are on the porch of Mrs. J.P. Warehouser, plotting away on how they're going to raise this money. And notice, you know, I think inside they're all smiling, but exterior, they must have been said, don't smile, just look serious because it's serious work. But they did raise $300,000 for this building. And in 2010 dollars, I'm not sure even 2021, but I know in 2010, that was 1.8 million that they would have raised. And guess what? They raised it in 2 weeks. Okay, next slide. Just remarkable. So in 2008, you know, our shelter was originally in this building that was built for us in 1927. The top 2 floors at the time were designed for single traveling women who were traveling out west for work to find safe housing. So they'd literally send a matron to the train station to find single women and bring them to the YWCA. In 1976, those 2 floors in our building, like I said, that I'm sitting in right now, were converted to a domestic violence shelter, the first shelter in the state of Washington. So fast forward, I got here in 2005. By about 2006, the pipes were breaking. This building was not meant for families. It's very old and it was very run down. And you know, I didn't want to spend the night in our shelter and I'm not even in crisis. And I was raised where if it's not good enough for me, why is it good enough for anybody else? So we found this building that you're seeing here, the former Wilsonian apartments built by a woman in 1917, Mrs. Wilson. And this building was purchased by our very courageous board right at the beginning of 2008 when the economy was starting to go into a deep recession. So kudos to a very courageous board. We raised $5 million and completely remodeled it. And the important thing to note about that is it was the first campaign we had done since 1927, right? So all the way to 2008 when we started raising this $5 million. I'm pleased to say we were successful and this building opened in 2010. Next slide. So here's just an example of what a shelter room used to look like. They were 97 square feet. Most of them had a bunk bed. This one is one of the few that had a single bed. But now our smallest room is 250 square feet and is beautiful, as you can see. These rooms were adopted by pro bono designers who outfit them with everything you see in the photo on the left. Next slide, please. So here you'll see that when we had large families, which we often have in domestic violence, sometimes it's not even the woman's choice, and she might have 6 or 7 kids really close in age. We had to cram them into a 210 square foot space on these bunk beds. Even mom slept on a bunk bed. But our new shelter, we can have families up to 8 kids, even because the 1,300 square foot apartments actually have 9 beds. Now, what I want to point out in this beautiful room, this was the Waldo, where's Waldo room? You don't see Waldo, but there's a drawing of Waldo in this room. These bunk beds are brand new. You'll notice the difference in the 2 photos. And I wanted to tell you a little quick story because it's about Korsmo Construction. And it shows the heart that Korsmo Construction has for our community. So Korsmo was not our contractor on this project. But John called me up one day and said, you know, we want to do something for you, even though we weren't chosen for the job. And I want to know, what do you think we can do for you? And on my walk to work one morning, I thought, you know, we don't want to move those old bunk beds. We want everything to be new and beautiful in this building. So I asked John, would you provide the bunk beds for the kids? Moms all get a single bed now, but kids still have bunk beds. And John said, absolutely. And these actually had to be constructed put together in the units because they wouldn't go through the doors. And John got a team together and did that for us. So I just wanted to highlight Korsmo Construction. Next slide, please. So the rooms with these designers, some of them put these beautiful murals on the wall. This one says, follow your dreams. And you'll notice it has flying zebras and all sorts of just fantasy characters. And this is a kid's room. So how important is that? And then our window bars were for safety. But, you know, I didn't want this building to look like a jail or a prison or anything for the community or for the families living in it. So I met with a local metal artist, Jennifer Wetterman, and she designed our window bars. And they're just stunning and they're beautiful. And as a result, people stop and take pictures of them. And at first we're like, why are they taking pictures? And then we realized by asking, they just wanted to have, you know, photos of our beautiful window bars. So that's just one of the ways in which we show beauty makes a difference in how people heal. The last thing I want to mention about this project is that because of the dignity it provides for our clients, we were featured in New York City in the Cooper Hewitt Design Smithsonian in 2017 in an exhibit called By the People Designing a Better America. And it was different projects from around the country that provided dignity for their clients. Okay, next slide. So after we finished the $5 million project, everyone's question during that campaign is, well, what are you going to do with the old shelter? It's 2 floors of a 5-story building. And what are you going to do? And my answer was always, I don't know. I can only concentrate on one thing at a time. So we'll see when we get there. So we opened the shelter, removed the shelter. We immediately turned around and started a $1.2 million campaign to renovate where the old shelter was. And Korsmo Construction did get that project. And thank goodness for them, because like I said, this was very run down. Anybody who worked on this project can attest to the fact that, you know, most contractors didn't even want to touch this project, but Korsmo came through for us. And now it's a beautiful, beautiful part of our programming. So one of the floors that used to be our shelter is for our therapeutic children's program, which you see here. Every wall is muraled with Pacific Northwest animals and things like Mount Rainier that they really see in their environment. And the reason for this mural is that our kids have all come from domestic violence. We don't know if their lives are going to get chaotic again. We hope not, but we don't know. And what we want to teach them in our program is that one thing they can always count on is that nature will be here for them. So everything they see on this wall, they know is in our area of the Pacific Northwest, and they can count on it. And they can always go find something in Mother Nature to help calm them. Next slide, please. So that brings us to our biggest project, which was 23.2 million, 25 million if you count the donation of the land that we donated because we owned it. So on the left, you'll see what was our staff parking lot. And the building that you see on the, I don't know if my pointer works, but right here, the building that you see there, that is our shelter. So you can tell what we've done here is complete our campus. And the project started in November 2019. It was supposed to start much earlier. We did a groundbreaking in July, but we hit some barriers. There's lots of barriers when you do a project like this. And in this case, it's one we couldn't control. We just had to wait for it to resolve. And so we got started at kind of a hard time right before winter was hitting. But the result is on your right. And this is a picture I just took the other day. So that is our Home at Last project. Next slide, please. I want you to know a little bit of history about the name of the building. We have named this building the Dorothy Height Apartments. Dorothy Height was very active in the YWCA movement and in the civil rights movement. She was marching right alongside Martin Luther King, just as important to the civil rights movement, in my opinion. Didn't get the credit because, as in many movements, women weren't elevated to the degree that men were, like Martin Luther King. And so I wanted to elevate her here on the West Coast. There are two other buildings on the East Coast named after her, a post office and the building where the National Council of Negro Women's Foundation is. It took me 2 years to get permission to use her name from the foundation, but I've been so blessed that we recently, right about the time the building was opening, got permission to use her name and honor her and her story, which is right inside so all of our tenants can read it. Next slide. So we built during a historic time. We all know about COVID, but COVID hit right as we were building this project. And I'll never forget a call we were on. We meet every week as a team. And we asked, what's going to happen if the governor starts a stay-at-home mandate? This is in March. And the answer was, well, we're going to have to shut down. Well, our developers, our low-income housing developer, Beacon Construction, did some research and found out since this is a project for homeless families, that in fact, we wouldn't have to shut down and we could keep building. However, we all had to learn what that looked like together. And that was a challenge. Sometimes one thing I didn't realize is when so many for-profit construction projects shutting down, the supply chain became a problem. So things like that just kept coming up, and we kept overcoming every barrier as a result of COVID. I couldn't be more grateful to Korsmo for continuing this project, during a very, very difficult time. And to also mention that this project was built right behind me where I'm sitting here. And so all through COVID, as I came to work every day, I got to watch this project and hear this project going up. And it really saved my soul as well during a very difficult time. Next slide, please. So this is the entrance actually to the counseling center that we are expanding our free therapeutic counseling program. And I wanted, we believe here, and I believe very strongly, that the arts are not a frill. The arts make a difference in how people heal and how people feel. And so here we have some of the artwork that is as part of this building, and we have more artwork that's going to be manifesting here in the next few months, but this one's finished. So above our door, we have this beautiful yellow bird welcoming people. It identifies our building, and then right as you go up a little farther behind one of these brick walls is this heron. And it's dimensional. It's a local artist, Claudia Retinier from Exia Tiles. And then next slide. As you enter the space of our counseling center, there is this beautiful tile work of the Salish Sea, and it's dimensional, meant for the kids to touch it. So as kids are coming to meet with a therapist, they get to interact with this wall and learn, once again, the importance of our own Salish Sea and how important it is that we work together to keep it healthy. So you can come by 408 Broadway and you could see this, even this one you can look through the window, but the other ones you can actually see from the outside. I welcome you to do that. Next slide. We wanted to provide a play yard. So this is a safe play yard. It's all gated and fenced. And we currently, we're 100% leased, about 80% occupied, and we have over 50 kids in the building right now. So this play yard is very active and very appreciated. And then beyond the orange, umbrellas is our community room, which you see here on the right. So it's a beautiful, beautiful space. What you don't see is our commercial kitchen with a double oven, dishwasher, the whole thing. So residents that want to entertain or have birthday parties can use this space rather than their apartments. Very important for the kids in our building. Next slide. My favorite is our rooftop patio. This is an area for adults only. So adults actually get a respite. We have single adults in this apartment. We also have families that have 6 or 7 kids, but regardless, adults also need a place to rest and to just to kind of renovate their souls and their spirits. So here's our rooftop garden. And as you can see, it has a complete view of Mount Rainier. We have wonderful solar panels that make this a LEED certified building. And this is my favorite aspect of the whole building. These are $1 million views, right? For homeless families. Let that sink in. So that's another way I wanted to emphasize, let's make this available for homeless families. It doesn't have to just be for people who can afford these kind of rents. And next slide. So then we did this project called Adopt a Room. And mostly I had 2 motives. One is I wanted more community members to feel like they were a part of this project. And being a part of this project means that they could just buy a coffee pot, or they could outfit a kitchen, a bathroom, or a bedroom. So we created lists, small, medium, large, depending on size of apartment, because we go all the way to 3 bedrooms. And then the community was able to purchase whatever they wanted. So I'll give you an example that some companies like Korsmo Construction, they took on a whole unit and outfitted everything from those lists on a 3-bedroom unit, not a small unit, on our largest unit. And they provided everything that family needs. So when they open their door, they don't know about this. Imagine you've been homeless, and this is what I was imagining and thinking, okay, now you've got a beautiful apartment with nothing in it. You've been living in your car. The majority of our new tenants have been living in the car. Some have been shelter hopping. Some have been living in a tent. So you don't own anything like a can opener, as little as that. Maybe even, a nice new pillow. So we outfitted everything except furniture, and furniture I'm providing, with beds being my priority, on a case by case what the tenants need. We are partnering with Habitat for Humanity. They are providing new beds for us because they have access to those, and we are purchasing from them. So we're supporting another nonprofit. So it's there's always opportunities for win-wins like that to take place. Next slide. These are my staff members helping me move stuff over, by the way. It was all staged in this building in our big gym. And I like to say this was the biggest nightmare I ever created that brought me so much joy. So we had like thousands of Amazon packages that had to get unpacked, sorted, and moved over. And I took that on weekends because since I created the idea and the nightmare, I felt like it wasn't really fair to ask my staff to help me too much. I did ask for a little bit of help. So here are some of the rooms that you can see the things that we provided. And our 3 bedrooms have a washer and dryer. The other units, there's a 2 shared washers and dryers on each floor. But this just shows when a client moves in, we had hung the towels. We had put the toilet paper on the toilet paper roll. We had put the bath mat out, and everyone had a shower curtain. We just didn't put those up. We let them do that in case they wanted a different one. But here's an example of these beautiful, beautiful rooms. The other thing I want to share that you wouldn't know from looking at this slide is that all of our design elements followed a trauma-informed lens, which is to say the cabinets and the drawers soft close. They don't slam, because everyone in this building has experienced domestic violence or other traumas, and sometimes a slamming cabinet can cause PTSD. So we considered even the lighting under the cabinets. So there's choice for if you want overhead lighting or under lighting or both. So all those were very conscious decisions. Next slide, please. So here are just some of the views. I took these photos directly from units. And I just want to end my presentation by sharing one quick story. I think it's the stories that really have touched my soul and taught me more about what homelessness looks like. So Annie was one of our first clients who moved in. Her kids are grown, so she moved in as a single woman. And I was talking to her the next day, and she was so excited about the adopt room. It's like a treasure hunt. She kept finding things that we had left for her. And then I said, well, is there anything else you need? And she kind of smiled and she said, well, you know, I needed a bed, but I didn't know how to get one. So I went ahead and I ordered one on one of those rent to own places. And my heart just sank because I know that she was going to be paying money that she couldn't afford for that bed, and a lot more money because she was going to have to pay it off over time. So I asked if she would share the place she bought it and the phone number, and she did. And I called them the next day with the credit card in my hand, and I shared the story that, you know, this woman really can't afford this bed. May I please pay it off? She just signed a contract, so I wasn't sure they were going to let her out of the contract, but I did have to pay a lot for that bed. I had to pay $1,400 for that bed, but I did it. And the next day I talked to her and I said, Annie, how was your night on your bed? Like, how did you sleep? And she said, it has been so long since I had a bed because I've been homeless for so many years that I slept so soundly. When I woke up in the morning and went to work, she works for minimum wage at a grocery store. She said, I was so tired all day because my body remembered what it felt like to sleep. So that is something I think we can relate to, but just shows how important it is for people to have their own locking door, their own homes, and a roof over their head. So final slide. Thank you very much. I look forward to answering any questions you have about this project. I appreciate your attention and your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miriam. I just love all the stories and how there's just meaning behind every aspect of this project. So thank you so much. And the mural that said, follow your dreams, that's what you did, you know? So thank you. Okay, so now we'll hand it over to John Korsmo Jr.
All right. Well, thank you, Rachael. And wow, Miriam, you really brought it. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. And it's great to have a little orientation around your organization as well and to get to know crew a little better. It's also great to just share the panel with a dear friend of mine, Miriam. Just a lot of respect for you, Miriam, just a great leader here in our community in Tacoma and Pierce County. And we're just really grateful to be a part of these projects that you've been working on and building through the vision and mission of the YWCA here in Pierce County, Tacoma. So you got to hear and see quite a bit about the project, and I just want to spend some time talking to you a little bit about our role as the construction manager and the general contractor for the project. We had a chance to work with SMR Architects, who were great, and Beacon Development, who was the owner's project manager and their business manager, working through the budget and the pro forma for the project. We were able to establish just a great working relationship right away, right up front. And Miriam talked a little bit about the value statement, which was great, and just building teamwork and working together. We went through, to begin with, basically the pre-construction effort. And our role through that effort was to, really be involved in the budgeting and the pricing. We spent quite a bit of time on the construction schedule because that was important, as you'll hear. And then we went through, basically the design review and the constructability. So the project was, basically it was over budget throughout pre-construction. We weren't off by much, but it was, it was a concern. And it was really important to the team. And by the team, I meant all of us working together, and that we weren't going to compromise anything here. We weren't going to compromise, something for the end user, something that they would be, the space, the apartments, things that they would be touching and living in. And so we worked really hard to bring all the value to the project. We did work through some value engineering efforts and selected a few of those. And then through Miriam's effort with some additional fundraising, we were able to reach the budget. So we got to get started. And so you'll see here in our first slide, we were to get started in August of 2019, but that didn't happen. We had a thing that kind of happened right as we were getting started that delayed us by about 3 months. It was a lot line adjustment that Miriam might talk to here afterwards. But we got started here in November of 2019, and it was a typical fall winter with lots of rain. Not necessarily not ideal for digging a big hole in the middle of a hillside. Our site here was quite constrained. We had a tight footprint, a very tight site, and we used our schedule during the pre-construction effort. We spent, like I said, quite a bit of time to plan just-in-time deliveries. And so what that means, and we can go to the next slide, is that while we're delivering form material, equipment, concrete, rebar, and you'll see later with lumber and sheetrock, all that material was delivered to the site and then brought right into the production of the building. We had very little room for storage and very little room for laydown area. And just as a side note, this is really important to today's construction, because as Miriam was talking about, the pandemic has caused now all kinds of supply and demand issues. As you hear right now, like lumber has really, the price of lumber has quadrupled because of the supply chain, and supply chain management has become really important to our efforts as a general contractor. We're working on talking with our subcontractors, but not just them. We're talking to the subcontractor, to their suppliers. We're talking to their suppliers, manufacturers. I mean, we're going down the chain quite a ways to make sure that the material can be manufactured, that it's going to be available, and that it's going to get delivered when we need it, so we can keep our projects on schedule. And we can talk a little bit more about this if we want, about how important this is to kind of keep things moving right now while we're still, living through the end of the pandemic here. So we can go to the next slide here as we move through. Right about the time we were looking to pour our post-tension concrete podium slabs here for the second floor. This was just a pivotal milestone for us, because we had 6 floors of wood frame construction that was going to be coming up next. And so it was right about this time where the pandemic caught up to us, and we were working, the governor was threatening on shutting down businesses, and as Miriam said, shutting down construction. And so, as mentioned, we were basically identified as being essential because of our public housing, low-income housing piece. So we were able to continue work, which was great. And we had to continue working, but there was all kinds of things that we had to change, and we were making, we were adapting every day to how we were going to continue. All the protocols we had to put in place, the safety measures, the work practices, trying to stay 6 feet apart, et cetera, et cetera. And so during the stay-at-home order, and while people were working from home, as you can see in this picture, there's apartments and there's office buildings, and of course, the emergency shelter is there, and the Y is across the street. Miriam wasn't the only one looking at us. We were in a fishbowl. And so what was happening is that at any point in time, you can go to the next slide, maybe here it shows a little better. This shows us starting to frame here in the spring and the summer months. And so as the weather was warming up and a worker was wanting to take off their mask to catch a breather, or if 2 people got within 6 feet of each other, we started to get phone calls. And we were getting phone calls from L&I, from the city of Tacoma. I mean, people were, on their rooftops and looking out their window and reporting on our activity. And, I got calls from Miriam and Karen as well. What really saved us is that we had so many things in place. We had written protocols, we had our safety policies and procedures, and we had an excellent on-site safety director. And that protected us from all the potential risk that we had. And I'm really proud to say that we completed the entire project without any violations. we had no injuries and no accidents on this project throughout the duration of the project. So I was really happy about that. The pandemic, though, and all that it produced did slow us down, and it caused some impact to our schedule. We lost basically all of our float, which float is just basically some time that we put into the schedule to encounter some delays if we do encounter them. And so basically we were tracking on schedule, and actually we were slightly behind at this time. And so as we're tracking the schedule and we're pushing now to try to make up some time, something really helped us. Something was happening and was actually started happening early on and during the progress of the project. Our team and our subcontractors, we created a buy-in, and it was kind of more of a feeling of ownership. And during the time that you're looking at here, and as we're building the building up, 80 to 100 tradespeople that were involved in this, and the subcontractors that they worked for, everyone started, seeing the mission and the vision. Miriam's funding, part of the funding for this building, for the YWCA, and part of the work that Beacon was tracking was tied to our completion date. And it was actually tied to our certificate of occupancy. And so it was essential that we complete on time. And so as we began to employ some acceleration, and we were looking at overtime and working weekends, which, could look at getting some, pushback, which could be expected. Instead, we received a lot of input, support, some ideas to help. And so what happened is that we came together, and this became much more than just a job to the people who were working on it. It became much more than just a project for our subcontractors. Everyone was buying into the mission of what it really meant for our owner and what it was going to mean to the community and to the end users of this project. So thank you. Here's a drone photo as we were getting, basically the exterior envelope was getting complete, and we were working inside the building now. And so I just want to say how important it is to have your owner involved in your project. And that was not a problem here because Miriam and Karen and their staff was just so passionate. And that was great because it quickly rubbed off on everyone. And so as we're completing the interiors of the project and getting ready to complete the project, the quality of workmanship, the urgency to complete on time became the priority. And that's basically exactly what happened. We pushed this to the end, and we finished the project on the last day of our project schedule. Our superintendent called me up in the afternoon on the last day and told me that we had got certificate of occupancy. And so that ensured that Miriam got the funding that they needed, and we had an opportunity then to complete the project. And more importantly, that the families got to move in on time and on schedule. And so that was just so important and so very rewarding as part of this project. And as Miriam noted, and just a kind of a footnote, we were involved in adopting one of the apartment units. And our company, along with some of the people that were working with us, some of the subcontractors, some of the team members that were on the project the longest, we all shared, our office staff all chipped in, and we were receiving tons of boxes from Amazon. And then it was so fulfilling for myself and a lot of our staff members to go up into the unit and start placing some of the furnishings into the bathroom, hanging the towels and going into the kitchen and placing the plates and the silverware and things into the kitchen, just knowing that whoever was going to occupy this building would just be just so thankful and just loving this new space that they got. So we're really grateful to be involved into the project. So I just want to be able to talk to you a little bit about our diversity efforts and a little bit more about our internal processes for diversity and equity and inclusion work. And I realize today that, a lot of the audience is women in real estate, kind of our sisters to our construction industry. And the YWCA, of course, mission is to empower women and to eliminate racism. And in our industry, we have women in construction. And in our company, we have women in construction. We have carpenters, tradeswomen, we have superintendents, we have project engineers and project accountants, project assistants. We've had project managers and estimators. And a big part of our diversity and a big role that Rachael fills is our outreach towards our subcontractors and towards women, women's businesses, minority businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and the outreach that we go to take a look and see if we can get these businesses to come to work with us in the projects that we do. And we become very intentional about this work. And so what I mean by that is that we don't just try to, find out who is a women-owned business and give them a call to bid our work. But, Rachael gets involved, and she gets involved with our project managers and our superintendents, our project teams, and they'll go and get to know some of these businesses and invite them in. And we'll get to talk to them. We'll get to know their capacities, what their limitations are, what the potential is, and why they might say, yes, we would like to, be a part of it, or like, why would they say no? And so what we want to do is help share the risk. We want to try to eliminate the risk we can. And if we find out what they're specifically good at and what their capacity is, then we can actually form a scope of work. We can draft a scope of work that would fit their company. And so that's really kind of the work that we're doing so that we can help make these businesses successful, these small businesses that can be part of these projects. They can be profitable, and hopefully then they can work with us and grow their business as well. So we're very focused on working together and providing these kind of opportunities. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we have turned our diversity program inward to take a closer look at our company and our company practices. And so we have developed a couple of program committees, which are being led by a DEI consultant that we have hired for our company. And he is helping us navigate some initial steps in this work. We begun by looking how culturally adaptive and agile we are to kind of get a starting place. We were looking at our cultural responsiveness, and then we've dug into some of the work and looking at working through some resources. We've had some podcasts that we've had an opportunity to listen to and work through. One was called Seeing White. And then we've had some other book resources with reading White Fragility and Me and White Supremacy, and then having a chance to discuss those and talk to those. And so what we've gotten is we've had a lot of our staff and a lot of our employees leaning into this work. And that's been just great to see. And so, to date, it's been a little bit of everything. I have to be, just honest about this. It's been hard. It's been what you've been hearing, and sometimes maybe overhearing to some degree, but it's been uncomfortable. We've been living in that uncomfortable part. It's been good. It's been messy. We've made some mistakes. I've made some mistakes, and as Rachael and I talk to each other, it's like that's okay, because we know if we've made some mistakes that we're in the middle. We know we're doing something. We know that we're in the middle of this work, and so we're continuing to make progress, and we're feeling pretty good about our efforts so far, and we have a lot of work to do, but we're looking forward to that work. And I think with that, I'll go ahead and transfer it back to Rachael.
Thank you so much, John. I love the part. I love all of it, but and I'm a little biased, right? But I love the buy-in, and I definitely can tell. You're in the hallways and you're hearing, and I remember hearing about this buy-in thing, and in construction you hear buy out. So it was just really a cool thing to hear. And I was going to mention the Adopt the Room. It's Miriam, it's so great for, we're in the business of making money, right? Yes, that kind of the optics that everybody thinks they see it that way, but these nonprofit projects just really mean a lot to us, and it's just great to be a part of it. So just really thankful that you let us be a part of this project. It was meaningful for us as well. So with that, I will hand it over. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. I'm going to ask some questions, and then I'll hand it over to you, Gloria. So we have some questions prepared. So this first one is to you, John. What recommendations would you make to other organizations in commercial real estate that is seeking to expand their DEI efforts?
Okay, so that was just right where I finished. And I guess, as I think through, it's really important to have a consultant and to really kind of maybe interview your consultant to really get to know them and make sure that you can really, get into a working relationship and really a personal relationship with them as you work through some of these, because it does get very personal and gets emotional. And then I think with us, it's coming from all directions, but certainly myself as owner and our president, Greg Prim, is very involved. And so having the leadership just engaged and just, ready to dive into this is really important as you ask the rest of your company to follow. So that's just a couple things that I think of.
Thank you, John. Miriam, this one's to you. And also really quick, just don't forget to put your questions in the Q&A box because the panelists are going to stay on and answer your questions. Miriam, did you run into issues with respect to available parking for tenants? And if so, how was that addressed?
Well, that's a great question. So parking is always an issue in downtown Tacoma, as we know. But this project, you saw it a little bit in John's last slide of the drone shot. We have 2 levels of parking because of the slope. So half the parking you enter off of Broadway and half off of the alley. The upper parking lot is 24/7 for tenants. And the bottom parking lot is for tenants who are going to work during the working hour day. So during the work day, that is for tenants at night, and during the day, it's for our staff, because our staff gave up their parking lot when we built this project. So for, like a year and a half of staff, well, and then we had COVID, so a lot of staff were working remotely anyway. So that kind of worked in our favor. That's when I started walking to work, because I knew I didn't want to hassle trying to find parking in downtown Tacoma. But we have 46 parking spots associated with this building.
And how long is that walk, Miriam?
40 minutes. If I walk fast.
Good job. That's awesome. Okay, this next one's for you as well, Miriam.
Okay.
How many clients do you anticipate being able to serve with the facility? And are the on-campus services for residents only?
So that's a great question. So we have in this project 91 bedrooms, 63 bathrooms, and 54 kitchens. So we have 54 units that, like I said, are studio to 3 bedroom. So I anticipate, there'll be over 100 tenants in this building, because some of the bedrooms have more, obviously, than one person in them. They might have 3 kids in them. And then the services that we're able to provide, the counseling services, all of our other services, our free legal services, and everything else that we do will be available to tenants, clients in our shelter, other community members as well that meet the scope of work that we do, which is mostly focusing on helping domestic violence victims start over.
Thank you. So this is for both you guys, and I'll let John, you answer it first, since you've been kind of out of here. Miriam's taking up all the time. What are your favorite aspects of the project?
Oh, my goodness. Well, the relationship for sure. Just knowing and getting to know Miriam, and then just being a part of her organization has been very rewarding. And we get a chance to do that with a lot. We do a lot of work in the nonprofit sector. So we really look to get to know our clients and then support them all the way through, long after the building is built. So, there's a lot of need here in our community for sure. But I just feel like, Tacoma and Pierce County does so much, and we have so many great organizations to help support that need. So the relationship is and you hear that, of course, that's all the time. Relationship is what it's all about. But being able to work together, knowing that, Miriam and I have this friendship, and knowing that there's not really a conflict of interest there, that we can work together. And like she said, I mean, there was some issues with the project and we had to work through those, and we were able to do that. So.
Yeah, so I'll echo that in relationship. I felt very blessed that we were able to hire a local company to be our contractor. That meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me to use John Korsmo Construction. I know the heart that John has for our community, and to just be able to be part of that, showing up every day, was just a very special opportunity. But now also the relationship that I'm creating with the tenants who are moving in, and seeing their amazing, overwhelming joy and comfort just in having a home, and sharing, trusting me enough to share their stories with me. It's really putting a face, like I said, on homelessness for me. And I think it's going to be my rest of my lifelong passion, is to really try to ensure that everyone has a roof over their head and a locking door that they will feel safe living in.
I definitely believe that your joy for this project is contagious. So I do believe that long term, this is what you're doing. So John, back to you. Last question. What was the community response like to the construction of the project? And did you run into any opposition?
I just learned this yesterday, but Miriam knows this, but there is a little story. There was a vacant lot there for a number of years. And what I found out is the opposition that was occurring was that the nearby tenants of the other apartment dwellers were going to lose what they had called the dog park. So even these other apartment buildings were advertising that they had a dog park nearby, to get their tenants. And so as we took over, as we first put the construction fence, as you see a project begin, you always see that temporary fencing going up and around the project. And when we put up that fence, there was a few people that were upset with us about that, because they didn't have any place to take their pets.
Yeah, I can see, as a dog owner, I can see that being an issue. Yeah, I will say, John, thank you for being a part of this today. And for my guests, I want you to know that John knows a lot of details about the project today, but this is how he is with all of our projects. He's so invested that he knows about the dog park. I'm actually surprised that he knew that. So thank you so much, you guys, for your questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Gloria, because I think we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box for you guys.
Hi there. So far, I only see one question. So if anybody has any that they want to get out, now would be the time to do it. But in the meantime, here's a question for Miriam. It says, when Miriam said the YWCA owned the land for the building site and donated it, can she elaborate on that? i.e., did it change hands within the organization? Also, did the city assist with funding the project?
So multiple part question I hear there. So we had owned this land for many, many years. It originally was blackberry brambles. And then we were grandfathered in to allow part of it to be our parking lot for our staff. Frankly, as our staff grew, we needed additional parking, but we weren't allowed to expand into what John is referring to as our dog park, which was our grassy area that became the neighborhood dog park. But we owned it. And then the project is now, we're in an LLC, Home at Last LLC, because this is a tax credit project. So around half of the 23.2 million was raised through a tax credit investor. So it gets pretty complicated. But yes, we did get money from the city and the county and the state. So about, I can't remember, it's great how your memory starts fading a little bit, but I think it was, about 3 to 5 million that we raised privately through individuals and private foundations. And then we have our tax credit investor, and we have the city, the county, and the state played a big role in making this, this project possible. We couldn't have done it without all that support. I hope I answered all the parts of the question. If I didn't, let me know.
I think you did. Here's another question. Any other unique aspects of this project that wouldn't normally have been included in a typical affordable housing complex? You mentioned the art. What I feel like that's a great question, actually. So
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I will just say also that we really care about how these apartments are going to last for people. So it was very important to us that we not have like the cheapest cabinets, the press board that's going to just chip right away. We wanted quality throughout this building. So we were not looking for the cheapest product. We were looking for what would be best for our tenants and best for long-term longevity in the building. So that's where our project cost were probably a little bit higher, but we raised the money, as well as that rooftop garden was so, rooftop patio was so important to me, and wasn't in the original price tag.
great. And here's another one. Are the adopter rooms all taken care of? Or are you in need of more goods to furnish the apartment?
I really love that question. They are. I have one more apartment to move over. We're still waiting for how big. It's a 3-bedroom, so I need to know if I'm, bringing 6 kids worth of blankets or 4 kids worth of blankets. But we are finished with that project. But you can always like our Facebook page, YWCA Pierce County, and we always, whenever we have a need, we post it on our Facebook page. So in a few years, we'll probably start having turnover of this apartment. It'd be nice to keep this going because once somebody leaves, we'll have another homeless family moving in. I'd love to be able to provide what they're going to need as well. And then also for the clients in our shelter, we're often looking for things like diapers. We go through a lot of diapers, non-perishable food, and different things like that. I will just mention that yesterday a board member brought me 54 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. So I get to go offer a box to every one of our new tenants. It makes me really happy. But thank you for that question.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. This was a great presentation. I love this project.
Gloria is on our board. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for making this possible.
Congratulations.
Great board member.
So exciting.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, I think I'll just wrap it up, and Gloria, you can go after me. But I just want to thank crew for having us and just highlighting this amazing project for our Tacoma community, and just being able to be here, like I said, to moderate this event for fabulous Miriam and the champion John Korsmo. You guys are just like a team. It's awesome to see you guys doing a project together. So thank you guys so much. And with that, I'll hand it over to Gloria. Close us out.
And thanks, Rachael. I have nothing else to add other than can't wait till we're back in person for our South Sound crew events and all crew Seattle events as well. So thanks all.